Hi, my name is Katie Simpson. I'm a painter, mixed media painter, and a teacher, and I'm really excited about my paintings. So I want to tell you a little bit about what I do. Usually people ask me, like, what is it made out of first? So I'm going to tell you that last. The paintings are about memory and overlapping, just like the layering of everything in the world. We're surrounded by so many different kinds of ideas and memories and images all the time. And a lot of it too, for me, is about the natural world, like the overlapping nature of everything on top of one another. So plants, you know, really they're all mixed together with plastic bags and, you know, some bones too or something. So there's a lot of different collage in the paintings. I brought a couple different things in process to show you too. But I think this show too, specifically, I've been thinking a little bit more about like the nature of memory as well. So partly my mom has Alzheimer's, so I've been thinking about memory in like a very specific way lately. Kind of like where everything connects and comes together and overlaps. For probably 2 years after I started painting in this way, I didn't really know it was about that, and now I'm like, oh, it is. There's so much stuff in there. That's when we're, you know, moving through the world layered up on top of each other. So a lot of it's imagery for us in these modern times. I've been painting in a style sort of similar to this for maybe like 25 years. I started painting people in this way a long time ago, and now I'm like, people. I like people, but you know. There's so much other stuff. So it's like around us instead of the actual person, it's the stuff that's around us. That's the focus now. So I brought some different things that are in process. I would just like show you kind of that part of the process. A lot of it is just me going through in the painting and feeling it out. Sometimes I'll have a specific goal in mind, but often it's not. It's just I paint until it's done. So it's a little bit of a mystery to me, so it's kind of hard to describe. This one is the closest to being done, I think, and I know it's teeny tiny, but I probably worked on this one for 4 months or something. Overlapping and layering. There's some firecracker papers in there. Lots of different plants, and often I'll paint in many, many layers of clear acrylic. So sometimes the acrylic has color added to it, but not always. Lately, especially not. But that's something that I started doing in probably 2003 or something, like using clear paint and layers of that as if it were resin or beeswax. This one that's closest to being done is this one, and you can see it's bigger, so there's a lot more collage in there and different words lately, like word stickers, some printmaking stuff. I feel like it's pretty close to being done. I have a tendency to want to like stack everything on top of each other. So, until it's put on it, just like life. It's just interesting to see somebody else's process, and this is something that you can see at Open Studios too. I'm hosted by somebody, but I might do bring things to the front or just things in process as well. So, Auckland bags, block prints, food ads, stuff like that. Lots of clear acrylic.
Are the trees block prints?
Some of them. Yeah, those are block prints, and then I'll started to paint layers of trees over the top as well. This is a funny one. I'm a teacher. I brought canvases in for young people to paint on, and this one had like somebody punch through it. So I took it home and I sewed it up. So it has like a memory also. Not that you would know that in just looking at it. There's some threads sticking out, but you wouldn't know that a girl, I don't like it, but it's got some of her painting underneath it as well. So for me, I feel like that's kind of where this stuff is. It's not necessarily visible, right? All of this memory and stuff that's in our lives and minds. It's not totally visible to everybody, so. Uh-oh, my paintbrush. So this is my favorite kind of paintbrush. It's a liner brush. I learned about this from a professor named Bill Lepore at Portland State University. He said, I think you need a liner brush one day. Changed my life. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, love these things. That's how I get the fine lines. I don't really like paint markers because you can't control the line as much. This one's about Aptos. I grew up in Aptos. This was a rose bush that was climbing up my house as a child. You know, there's music in there, there's all kinds of other stuff, and it's just like this layering of memory and kind of like feeling also. When I talk to people about the work, they're like, oh yeah, I can see that. They're not having the same layering of memory and feeling as me, which is beautiful. So, anybody have any questions about any of it? Yes, thank you.
Do you just collect objects for the collage aspect?
I do.
Paper stuff.
I have a big, well, 2 boxes of specific collage stuff. I do teach collage sometimes too, so I've got like extra stuff, but I filter it for my own feelings. So.
Okay, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Like, what draws you to a particular image for collage?
Color, my own memory too. I'm pretty excited about parts of fireworks. Partly because when I started painting like this in like 2003 or something, I was living in Portland, Oregon, and my neighborhood had like the craziest 4th of July. There was always so much garbage all over the place and like fake war, and it was like shiny and bright, and like there were gunshots in the neighborhood, but also like the firecracker noise. And that's when I started to use those then. Like, it's my own, you know, it's my own artistic language, I guess, that I'm taking from that time. Yeah, and some of the stuff like the block prints, I make books and nature guide books, and then I'm putting that into the paintings as well. I choose colors that I like. I went to a lot of art school, but I feel like I don't use all that information.
What about the preference of the surface? Do you have a preference for the surface you're painting on? Because you use both canvas and wood surfaces. I was just curious.
I think I like wood more, but it's heavier. For a long time I painted on paper because I moved around a lot, and I was just painting on paper and trying to keep my amount of stuff lower. But then I've been living in the same house for a long time, so I started to paint on canvas again and wood. The wood I actually started using at the time that I started to paint in this way also. I came back to it after a long time away as well. I was doing other stuff like sculpture and just printmaking and some other stuff. I like this like sticking away from the wall. If it's on wood, you can nail stuff to it. I'm just trying to get to a feeling. It's sometimes has a lot of different stuff in it, and sometimes it's just paint. So, it is really heavy though. I used to build them myself, the boxes. Now they're more commercially available. At the time when I started, it was like harder to find them.
So when did you come up with this collage paint method? Have you been doing it a long time? That's what you've been doing for a long time, 25 years?
Yeah.
And did you come up with this method, or is it something you learned from someone?
I think the clear paint thing I learned in one of my undergrad classes, that you can use a paint that at the time also like less commercially available, but you can basically make paint out of something, like adding sand or chunks of stuff to it. That's at the time somebody was like, oh, you would like this, and so just like recommendations of different teachers mostly. But yeah, I don't know, the collage thing came around that same time too. Just thinking about how to unify the surface in a way. Like you're using glass kind of probably in a similar way. You're trying to make up one piece of glass out of pieces of glass, right? And it's a similar feeling for me. I'm trying to make one thing out of a lot of different things. And that, for me too, I'm not thinking of a specific material as the way that I get there. I want to get there, and so I don't care what I put in there. And I don't have to think about, I mean, it's all that clear acrylic paint, it's really easy to get stuff in. Really want to make sure it's like sealed, and then really you can do whatever you want after that. It's really flexible.
Gotta get you in the glass studio.
Someday. Yep. I've thought about it. I've made a couple things, like, because of being a teacher also, I've had access to trying a lot of different kinds of things. Some of these have like spray paint in them and different stuff too. It's just like trying to get to this. Palimpsest is a word that has to do with writing, the layering of different like written materials on paper. Sometimes it's also like been washed off, but you can see it with like what is it, X-ray? Yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of an idea that I'm getting to as well. Like maybe you can't see all the stuff that's under the surface, but it is there. Yeah.
Is the paint you use mostly acrylics?
Mostly acrylics. I will use oil-based block print ink, mostly because I want it to be like a separate thing on top. So if I were to use even some of the ones that are like acrylic block print inks, they still will degrade if you put like water-based media on top of them. Pretty much, that's the only oil-based thing I would use. Sometimes I've used like a paint pen that's oil-based. But anybody else have any questions about any of it? I love it. It's fun. It's fun to talk about. So, yeah.
Most of your collage stuff is stuff that you just find like on the side of the street, or
Often on the side of the street, but I have an uncle who sends me all kinds of weird stuff, like parts of the newspaper and stuff like that. So sometimes if there's something interesting in the newspaper, he lives in LA, I'll find something from that. I do want to like change it in some way, you know, because I don't want to steal somebody's image or words really. So I'll put paint over the top of it or turn it around or put layers of stuff. Maps, I really like maps. Sheet music that's I find on the street sometimes, or like somebody donated to me a bunch of sheet music from his grandma. So to me, that's poetry. It's not like I know the song usually because they're old. I'm using the words in a different way. Same with magazine stuff. It's for the specific words or the feelings of the words. Yeah. Or like the colors, yeah.
So if you were to tell us what the story is of one of these paintings, like how would that story go? Like verbally, like...
They're all a little bit different, but I'll pick one and just kind of tell you about it. This one is about one of my professors from grad school who passed away the end of last year, and there was a show for him, and everybody kind of responded to him with a painting of the same size. So this is about him. But in that way, there's like a lot of other information in there. He was very like, he had like a really good way of expressing things that were in his heart. Like he was just very heartfelt. So it's a lot about that. Like he would tell you what he thought. Sometimes he would be like, oh, but he was like such a good person, such a good heart. And then also plants that I grew in grad school are in there. So I grew out for part of my thesis show. I did an installation, and there were a lot of live plants in it. So there's some of the different plants that I grew at that time. And then when he passed away, he was a health focused person. So I planted some edible flowers in his honor. And then there's like all kinds of other stuff in there, of course. But I also had a dream about one of his paintings, like in the process of making this painting. So there were some straight lines in his paintings. So some lines in there. This one is kind of about like the memory of childhood, growing up in the woods. We had a lot of these plants. So it's that, but it's also this like faded photograph feeling, like kind of 1970s photograph feeling. So that's where I got some of that. And it's like, there's some flowers in there from a tree on my street, flowering plum tree. So they're always early in the year, bright pink. But it turns brown, and that kind of process, like the chemical process of that happening in the painting, inspired me to make it more about childhood also, and like the faded quality of photographs. Yeah, they all have like very personal stories, which you wouldn't necessarily know, but I'm hoping that when whoever looks at them, they get the feeling that they're about a combination of different different memories. There's like so much personal weird stuff in there that you wouldn't necessarily know. Just hoping you get a feeling from it. Yeah.
Thank you, that was really
Thanks.
nice to hear.
Just come to Open Studios, I'll tell you more. Or just talk to me. Thank you. That's fun.